COVID-19, a virus that shut down the world, something no one has ever seen in over 100 years. No matter how far we move to normalcy, we will never forget the lockdowns, political wars, and lives lost. This is the history of COVID, globally, locally, and personally. A different time in our lives. A time we took for granted. A time where I was still a freshman. A time where Sierra could actually win football games. As this was going on, a mysterious virus was found in Wuhan, China.
The mystery virus started here in the city of Wuhan. Chinese authorities pinpointing its source to this food market. Dozens have been infected, but experts here believe the actual figure is closer to 1,700 cases.
It later made its way into the United States as early as January. Most were still not panicked because most of the cases were still in China. School and sports were still the same, I did swim, and life was still normal. That was until...
Update on the spread of the deadly coronavirus. Now, a short time ago, the World Health Organization declared the outbreak an international public health emergency.
Just declared a global coronavirus. It is a pandemic at this point.
We have therefore made the assessment that COVID-19 can be characterized as a pandemic.
What was it like as a principal when it was first declared a pandemic and schools would be shutting down?
Yeah, so we were actually on finals that week and or midterms in March, and when we heard they were shutting down, actually the state, putting under COVID lockdown. So for us at schools, I think the initial thought was, what does that look like?
On March 13th, 2020, schools shut down completely. At the start, it felt more of like an extended spring break. It was a time where we got to sleep in and not worry about schools or sports.
A lot of free time.
I think it would be very different. I think that I would have different hobbies than I do now. I taught myself how to play ukulele over quarantine, and I think that if we didn't have COVID, I wouldn't know how to do that.
I got a lot of time with my son. He when we started COVID, he was 2 years old, and it was it's weird to say it out loud, but it was a really good time to be home full time with my son. And
it didn't take long, though, for it to become depressing. 2 weeks became 2 months until you lost count. It was a time where most felt completely alone and isolated.
We were going on spring break, so we had a week off, and then we thought, well, if this is shut down, then you started hearing, 2 weeks to slow the curve and that type of thing. Then you started thinking, what if this goes beyond, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or for the rest of the school year? What does that look like? And so that, even in slightest ways, we look at, there was, obviously mental health referrals have gone up quite a bit. I know one of our classes did a study on that, and we have had, we monitor the mental health referrals here on a regular basis, and they have gone up. And
like I said, I feel like I didn't really have a social life, really, because I couldn't see any of my friends. I couldn't go to school. I couldn't really go out because of being quarantined.
I would say that the pandemic definitely heightened my anxiety. I already struggle with anxiety disorder and panic disorder, and so those things already affected me, and the pandemic definitely made that worse.
The worst thing the coronavirus did to my life is probably ruined me mentally. I won't go too far into it, but it ruined me mentally.
Deep into the pandemic, we saw the rise of games like Fall Guys and Among Us. Around this time, we also had a very different return to school, with being fully online. Some say it was easier, while others saw their grades take a deep dive.
But yeah, it was kind of eerie, very eerie around here to walk around, and just, school's meant to have students and kids and teenagers here running around and, learning and attending classes and all the extracurricular activities. So
my grades were really, really hurt by the pandemic. Like, I got a lot of grades that I shouldn't have, and I got really lazy during the pandemic. And
Yes. Like I said, there wasn't really any teaching. Personally, I felt like teachers weren't really teaching like how they used to. There wasn't any I know they tried their best, but there wasn't any really teaching going on. It's just giving out assignments on teams. There's no connecting with any students.
Not so much, no. It was actually kind of easier online school because you could refer to your resources.
They went up because, as you can see, I studied more and I had more time to focus on different subjects during Corona. And my grades went up to A's and B's as they usually were.
Corona came in waves, with some being shallow with restrictions being low and cases going down, to huge tidal waves with even stricter guidelines and surges of cases. With each wave came an even stronger political debate, especially after Joe Biden's win in the 2020 elections. On January 6, 2021, a mob of Trump supporters attacked the Capitol because they believed the election was rigged and Joe Biden didn't actually win. With this going on, the vaccines were being approved for different age groups. With the COVID vaccines coming out and cases going down, we got a glimpse of what it was like to be normal again, with hybrid learning and the return of sports. But it still wasn't the same.
Last year's sports were very different because you had to pick a sport, which before normally you can do 3 sports because there were different times of the season, but now they were all at the same time, and it was very hard to kind of schedule everything into one day. A lot of the practices were kind of overlapping each other, or just some were in the morning and at night, and so it was just going to be a very tiring day.
When it was COVID, we had to wear masks in the gym. Sometimes our games got canceled, or sometimes even the whole team got quarantined. And now it's still not the same as it was before COVID, but it's definitely better than how it was.
During the COVID time, we had meets just to get a sense of feeling normal and everything going the way it was supposed to. But nothing mattered. They didn't keep score in the meets. They didn't hold a ranking at the end and say, here's your VOL champion.
2021 was the deadliest year in American history. COVID-19 was one of the leading causes of death. My own grandmother died because of it.
I mean, we've had some personal losses. We lost a teacher. I know of some other losses too in our school family.
Killed one of my family members.
It affected me because my mom got COVID while she was in the hospital for a medical condition. She was diagnosed December 27th as positive. I was with her at the time. I wasn't prepared for that, and I hugging and kissing my mother, and then I had to go 5 days later to get tested to see if I was positive. I wasn't, but December 27th changed my whole life with my mother. 10 days later, she passed, and I get mad. The prior question was, how did I feel about the people that didn't? I get mad because if people would have taken this more seriously, maybe not only my mom, but maybe hundreds of others would have still been alive.
What was Tomasa like?
She was a real person. She would, if you were in front of her and she didn't like you or whoever, she'd let it be known in front of you and whoever. And
my mother was a feisty one. She was somebody that either you loved her or just didn't understand her. But she was somebody that very intelligent, taught me a lot of things.
Her taking me to learn how to drive, and she told me, let's go to the drive-thru at McDonald's, and I was like 15 at the time, so I'm going and I couldn't drive, but she's, you're fine, just go. So what if you run over a curb? So we go into McDonald's, and she go, order what you want me. So I ordered me something. I asked for my Mr. Pibb, and she goes, you asked for a Mr. Pimp? Is a guy gonna come out, or is he gonna meet us on the front?
Favorite memory of her is when her and I sat down one time, and she didn't like talking about life or anything, but it was a circumstance one time that I was having a bad day, and she turned around, gave me a hug, and said, you're amazing, you're somebody that I wish I would have done what you have done, and keep doing a good job.
COVID affected millions around the world. Did you ever think you would lose someone to it?
No. At first I thought, no, it can't happen to me. I mean, I saw tons of my patients pass from it, tons of them. And I just thought, oh, well, you know, they're older, or because they're, you know, they have this and that wrong with them. They would be, thank you for always giving me strength and teaching me to be strong and fight and never give up, no matter how much I want to give up, because there's times I want to give up. And I remember she never gave up, no matter what she went through, never.
When she passed, it hit me hard. I was her caretaker. I was and she was everything to me. She told me she loved me, and I'll take that with me. Mom, thank you for everything that you've taught me, and I wish you would have taught me more. And thank you for letting me know how much you love me.
My grandmother's passing greatly affected me. It was the worst thing I've ever been through. Knowing there will be no one else like her. No one else will cook like her, or be as funny as her, or as strong as her. The woman who I looked up to, who took me to McDonald's whenever I wanted and gave the best advice, was gone. In my Communication by Design class, I've been given many assignments from making my own podcast to writing articles. The very first one was about Omicron for our school's newspaper. Omicron was the most contagious variant we have ever seen. It brought back stricter guidelines, and many events and games were canceled. What events have been canceled or postponed due to Omicron?
We have canceled our Winterfest rally and our Winterfest dance that we were going to hold in a few weeks in order to hopefully kind of not spread the virus around. We're still going to have our Winterfest week. It'll just look a little bit different than it normally does.
And do you think the prom is still in the picture?
As of right now, prom is still in the picture, and it's still a few months away, so we have some time. And yeah, we're just crossing our fingers. I'm not nervous about that one yet.
How have you alternated events to be safer and fit protocol, but try to keep them as they were before?
We have tried to limit capacity to things. For instance, back in the fall, we did the split rally in the gym where only half the students were in the gym at a time. We try to keep track of how many people are coming into different events, how many tickets we're selling to things, just to be aware of how many people are around and who those people are.
Is this the worst the attendance has been that you know of?
In my career, yeah, it's the worst that I've seen it, unfortunately. Yeah, we're dealing with a lot of students being out quarantined or sick. The mask mandate is enforced for indoors, like in classrooms or inside buildings. We do enforce that students wear them.
Later on, I was given the assignment about mask mandates ending, and I did an interview with MUSD Assistant Superintendent. Around this time, I was also assigned to do a documentary for this class. With all the interviews, research, and my own experiences, I thought this be a perfect topic.
So I think one of the things we probably should touch kind of before we go into anything is that, you know, the masking mandate, currently there is a requirement, and the state of California is changing that to a recommendation. They're saying that COVID is going to be around, that it's not necessarily something that is going to be going away. Just sort of like we have cold and flu season that I think all of us are familiar with, you know.
Do you think Sierra or MUSD will go back to normal, aka pre-COVID life, or has the pandemic changed it forever?
Yeah, unfortunately, I do think COVID has changed things from a medical standpoint, that we'll probably never go back to what we've considered the norm. I'm not saying we have to wear masks forever. I think that will subside and will, you know, hopefully like we're seeing now.
I don't think life will ever go back to normal, but it's been changed so much that we forgot what normal's like. But it's not so bad right now, going out without masks and stuff.
People's like family members have passed away, or friends, or like it's just gonna stay here as like a scar on the earth, just like the rest of the pandemics.
I did a follow-up interview with Mr. Green, Miss Shaw, and Mr. Clark. Mr. Green was able to have a full track season. Even one of his athletes, Deontay Berry, was able to go to state. Mr. Clark had to face many adversities as a principal during the pandemic, but is able to see his campus slowly return back to normal. And Ms. Shaw continues to have a positive attitude and was happy to see many events get to happen, including prom.
In the last interview, attendance and everything was just kind of weird during the Omicron time. Has attendance since gone up?
It has improved, yes. We're seeing fewer students missing due to quarantines and seeing students back regularly, engaged in all of the activities and all of the fun parts of high school that we missed out on for a little bit. For example, this Saturday is the prom, and I'm really excited that we're able to resume holding events like that, at the venues.
I was a freshman at the start of the pandemic. Now I'm about to be entering my senior year in a few months. COVID has changed our lives completely, both bad and good, but it has made us who we are today.
I think that we all just grew in the pandemic. I know I grew as a person. I kind of found out who I was more. I grew more confident in myself, and I would say those are what changed me.
Really hurt me. It kind of made me who I am in a way.
Oh, it made me become who I am now. I'm so amazing right now.
Not to sound cliche, but it made us stronger.
I often think about what life could have been if this pandemic never happened. I don't think I would have been in a toxic relationship. I don't think my grandma would have died. I don't think my mental health would have gotten as bad. But what making this made me realize is I'm not alone, and neither are you.
And tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way. And guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile.